the 28th of May, the Raynham Rent Control Board is called to order. We are called to meet for an adjustment in the rent at Pine Hills Estate. They're finishing their last year of a 5-year lease, and they're going to commence a new year on a new 5-year lease. And I've had information presented to me by management as to their expenses and a breakdown of the pass-throughs which are required, and they all seem to be in order. The only question is whether or not the package as presented is still the same, or is there a slight change or modification?
So with respect to the package, I have in front of me a memorandum of understanding that I believe was supplied to you, and it has to do with the phase 1, phase 2 rent increase and structure for the next 5 years. This was drafted after a lot of hard work with park ownership and management and the board members that are here today. For phase 1, we had a starting base rent of $505 per month plus a $7 pass-through, which came to a total of $512 per month. That number would increase by $20 each successive year, plus pass-through adjustments up or down. Phase 2, on what we had agreed to with the homeowners association, was a base rent of $556 with a $7 pass-through, with the goal of levelizing the pass-throughs now that the park is complete. That did include the $60 attributed to the landscaping, which I know we had talked about having that be a pass-through, so that language might need to be tweaked. And then from year after year, there would be a $25 increase plus the pass-through adjustment upwards or downwards. So that was the terms that the park management and ownership had kind of worked very hard with the homeowners association on. I know you've had some chance to sort of look at the numbers and may have had some thoughts on some of the figures, I think more with respect to phase 2. So.
Well, I have a copy of memorandum of agreement that has no signatures on it. I can only assume that people agreed to it, and
so with that, I can answer that after I think a meeting. You know, I think the homeowners association, I won't speak for them because they're here, had the understanding that the board may have been changing some things, so that's why this hadn't been signed. I might, if I'm misspeaking, be free to interject. But our hope is that, as in years past, the board has told us to try and sit down with both sides and try to iron out some details in an agreement where both sides are happy and in agreement. As you've said in the past, consenting adults coming to an agreement, and we worked really hard to do that. So those are numbers that we had presented for your consideration.
all right. The homeowners?
Yes, we are in agreement with those figures.
Well, if you've been in agreement, have you done any extensions to get an idea of what it would be?
Well, I don't know what you mean by what.
Well,
These are the figures that we came up with. We are in agreement. What we agreed to is that phase 1, the first year is actually a $21 increase, and the others 4 years are $20 for a total of $101. And phase 2, $25 a year for 5 years for a total of $125, plus pass-throughs. We understand that pass-throughs get carried along.
Okay. Well, I'm going to compliment you on working out, I'm going to say a mutual agreement. Nobody's happy, but they come to some type of a consensus that this is fair and equitable. As usual, I took that and I ran with it and looked at it. And Mr. Francis is the only other member here today. Mr. Stanley, unfortunately, is in Maine. By the time he called me back, he told me he was in Maine. He wouldn't be home until sometime next week. I want to make a couple of observations, comments. And I believe I'm going to speak for the entire board, and Mr. Francis can speak for himself. The long process that we're accumulating here has come to a point where it's nice that two parties can sit down and iron the problem out instead of coming to us and having us do it. Now, believe me, I'm more than prepared to do it. I've been prepared to do it for 20 years, and we have been doing it, trying to keep the peace. I'm going to oversimplify. We are now at a point where there is just one park. Both are fully built out. Phase 1, Phase 2. The only difference is Phase 2 gets lawn service. And I suggest extremely, as enforceably as I can, that over a period of time, maybe the next 5 years, over a period of time, the monthly check that you pay, either 1 or 2, the only difference is, and at this moment in time, the only difference is $60, which is the landscaping, lawn care. That can go down. If the lawn care comes in cheaper, goes down. If fertilizer goes up and the guy wants more, you'll be paying, the 60 is alive. I have no problem looking at this. I try to do it personally. I try to do it all at once instead of a phase-in. What you are talking for phase 1 is 500 and, let me get a follow down to, that's on the first page. Phase 1 is $512. This is a dramatic change, but it can be happened, and you can do it, planning on doing it in the next phase, the next contract, unless you can get together, think about it, work it out, and come back, and we can adjust the figures going forward. If I were to take the information that you gave me and said you were going to give up X amount of dollars, phase 1 would have a new rent, and I'm not saying it does have, it would have a new rent of $503 total, starting in July. And phase 2 would have $563, which you're going to have because that's what you've already agreed to. Then going forward, phase 1 and phase 2 would be paying $25 a year increase for the balance. Phase 2 doesn't change one iota. Phase one is the one that would be affected doing it right now. And I strongly recommend that you follow that path, because we are addressing this as APOC. 1 and 2 had to stay 1 and 2 because 2 was more expensive to build because it was built 30 years after. The whole thing is now melded. We knew from day one that eventually the fair market rental for that little piece of land that you're renting is the same. And splitting the pass-throughs accordingly makes everybody equal. Now, when I see a problem, I like to solve the problem and solve it for a long period of time. It takes a lot of effort to come back and do it again and again and again. I'm prepared, if you're prepared, I'm prepared to go ahead and agree to what you've agreed upon. I also want to emphasize you have to close that gap. And if you want to close the gap on this contract, we can, but the negotiating team has to be sure that your people that aren't here, that may be on the line or whatever, understands what we're doing. Because I got a phone call, and the phone call lasted more than an hour. Wanted to know what I was doing, having a meeting for the rent board. And I try to explain that the rent board responds to requests, either from the association or from the landlord. And this was one that was, everybody knew was due because you were working on it. Comment was, I had no idea what the hell they're doing. They haven't said a word to us. And this person threw out a dollar amount. And I said, well, I don't know where you got that amount. That's not what I see. Now, I'm not saying you're not doing your job. I'm saying sometimes you got to communicate with the masses in a fashion that they can't point a finger at you for not doing the job. This is going to happen again in 5 years when you sit down again. Now, I know if you're under the gun, you're forced to do certain things. And because the landlord likes to collect his money, his increase, on the 1st of July, this board has to rule in May, because the board's policy has been and will be the first of the month following 30 days after our vote. This is as close as you can get it. We could do it on the 31st if it wasn't a holiday. But this is as close as you can do it to get it on July 1. And that was done because we would have people here, and all of a sudden they knew that next month I'm going to go this. They have no idea. This process was put there by this board unanimously to have you come up with it. Compliment you on doing it. Numbers fine. I have no problem. I would offer a slight suggestion. Don't wait till the 1st of May to start negotiating. You people have a number. Know what number that you can live with. Push them to meet so that you can go back and talk to your people, your neighbor next door. If you're in section 2, you're in section 1, your neighbor next door, so they know what you're doing. This isn't like a union where the great part of negotiating, even with your attorney sitting here, the attorney has an out. I'll have to take it back to my client to see if it's okay. He doesn't have to make the decision. I have to take it back to our members to see if it's okay. So you're protected. Because once you bring it here and you say, yes, I'm assuming 444 units are agreeable.
Can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Now, I don't know whether you're knocking us or not. However, I'm going to say the following. We got our information the end of April from the management. I happened to be away on a vacation. We met as soon as we could. We shared that information with people in the park. We have no meeting. Did we share it on social media? No. We talked to people. We talked to key members in the association, former presidents, legal. That's how we spread the word. Just as you're saying we should have. That's exactly what we did. That's all I can tell you, Mr. Bencourt. That is how we handled it. We talked it up. We talked up the stuff. Every time we met with the Millers, we went, people met, we talked to. Did we or did I knock on 444 doors? No, I didn't. And if that bothers some people, I apologize. It's impossible for me to knock on 444 doors. I did the best I could, and we did the best we could. The board met after, every time the three of us met with the Millers. We met at my home. We did the best we could.
Under
COVID conditions.
Exactly.
So I don't appreciate you lecturing us on what we did. That's how I'm taking it.
I'm sorry you're taking it that way, but you didn't get the phone calls.
I did get phone calls from
Okay,
people, and
but-
I shared the information.
That's
My
fine.
numbers out there, people could have.
I am
Let's move
searching,
on.
I am searching for answers. That's all.
Gave you an answer.
Maybe my technique may be a little bit harsh at times, but
May I
I'm looking
interject
for
real quick,
answers.
Joe? So today you have before you have a representative of the park. Like Mr. Gillis said, we can't have 440 people in here. That's just unrealistic.
I'm aware of that,
And
sir.
second of all, this year, on the letter of understanding or memorial of understanding that you have in front of you, there's a combination of residents from both phases that are involved. So there's no one was hiding the ball from anyone. There was disclosure on both sides. We worked this process. There was time. It wasn't an ambush. No one from the park is here saying it was an ambush. Of course you're going to get a phone call. There's 440 residents. Everyone's going to get a phone call. I think that everyone operated in good faith under the circumstances that no one can control with COVID. It's not realistic to have a meeting with 400 people. Like Mr. Gillis said, they disseminated the information amongst their members. They're voted on. They're put in these positions of authority by their peers to address issues like this. I've been doing this now since 2013 with this board, and every year you've asked our ownership group to talk to the board because they represent the park, and that's what we've done. Mr. Gillis just told you that they use their network to reach everyone in the park. Yes, you're going to get a phone call. Yes, he's going to get phone calls. Yes, Deb's going to get phone calls. It's just going to happen. So I think what we've come to is, over the past 13 years I've been helping, is we have come to you with a package that both sides feel comfortable presenting and we're comfortable putting their names on. And I think that's a huge step. So I think it would be unwise to try and deter that from continuing in the future. So, I think the history lesson is history. I think we can look at the numbers. That's what we're here to do today. And I hope the board, will accept what we presented. Your counter proposal, I understand your thought behind it. My clients don't have objections to that leveling since the park is complete, but I would just say we've been told to try to negotiate in good faith, and we've done that. And obviously you have discretion in some shapes and forms, but I think what we've presented to you is a fair agreement.
If you recall, I complimented you and you in the process that you've gone through. This was not a derogatory comment to anybody. I'm sorry, Mr. Gillis, if you took it that way. I'm just letting you know that there are people that complain that the sun isn't hot enough when they're in the middle of a desert. All right? You're frustrated. You want to sit in my chair sometimes with what we've had to go through. I think you've made great strides. I have no problem with your proposal, personally, or as a member of this board. And I said to you, I'm prepared to vote it. But I made the suggestion of making this a complete singular park other than that one service. I could do it.
So
But
can we
you
talk
wouldn't
about
have
that
the
one specific
opportunity
question?
to take it back and check, do you feel that's right? So what I'm going to do is just address what you've given us. And I'm going to ask a question before we take the vote. Would you people be willing to sit and think out what I just suggested? And next year, when you come in to get the pass-throughs certified plus the $20 or the $25, we could amend the last 4 years of the lease so that it would be in place going forward?
Yeah. I don't think we obviously have to come back every year for the pass-through adjustment. If that's a topic that gets discussed between now and then, and park, the residents think it's in their best interest and ownership and management, we can iron out. We can always amend. We want to be able to tell everyone, sorry. We'd like to, the residents to know what's coming for them. So every year it's not changing. That was a problem the last 5 years, was every year it changed, and they felt, we worked hard to come to a lease, and every year it's changing. So we'd like to get something and stay with it for that 5 years. So obviously, that is a concern.
Mr. Gay, the confusion in the last 5 years was that the interpretation and the putting together numbers were the two different points of view going through. And as you recall, I assumed the responsibility for the screw up completely, so that neither party has to say it was their side or it was my side. I understand what a 5-year lease is supposed to do. That the idea of giving just the pass-throughs every year, because they were created by a court order, and we follow that. All right? And it's to their benefit, pass-throughs, because pass-throughs are dollar for dollar.
Nope, I understand.
Okay?
What are they asking for?
You have a question, Gordon?
Yeah, what are they asking?
So,
512?
What they're asking is the, for phase one, they want 512, and phase two, they want 563.
Mr. Beckgort, park ownership is not opposed to the balancing and balancing it now.
Rather than in the future.
So.
Well, I mean,
they're
that's only half of it. That
Correct, so I
if
know.
they
Mr.
wanna, if they wanna discuss that, that's fine. We're willing to do that. Everything else that was being done has gotten us to that point. If you feel that it's too much, it can be done on a phase-in. I can sit down and calculate it so that by the time you get to the 5th year, you are there. But there makes a change in phase 1. Phase 1 would have to come up with some more money.
Suggestion. Rather than use the $60, can we use the word lawn care? Because lawn care is not always going to be $60.
That is a line item called lawn care. And whatever that amount is the extra.
Okay.
That's fine.
Next point I want to make is, I don't want to come back here next year or the year after. I don't want to. I don't know if the other board members want it. So to go to your phase-in plan, can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, the phase-in plan, I would have to sit down and, keeping in mind, when you want to project out 5 years, what you're looking at is the lawn care is off the table for the calculation, because that's an add-on. So if you use what you have for your pass-throughs that you're starting with, and say that never changes, okay? What you have is starting on the basis, you have $378 of your existing rent is what you call a base rent on phase 1. $370 is your base rent on phase 2, because that had the $60 taken out and put on a line item. You keep them the same. If you want to make it $400 for phase 1, or say $22, that makes it $400, then you're going to go to a number to bring the other one up to that number. And then everything is the same after that, whether it's $25 or $20. Everybody gets the same increase every year. The only difference is you get a second bill for $60 a month, phase 2. So it's just a mathematical exercise. Once you get the two lines together, then you run it.
So your proposal would have phase, let me call it phase 1, July 1 paying what for rent? Am I correct in that it's 503? Total?
Right now, yes. Phase 1 would go to 503 instead of 512.
Okay, and then year 2 would be 528 plus pass-throughs?
Pardon?
Year 2 for phase 1 would be 528 plus the pass-throughs, whatever they are, and they're unknown at this time?
Phase 2 would be 563. You've agreed on that
No,
number.
I apologize. Phase 1, year 2. Would it be 528? You're adding
Well,
25.
no. If phase 1 would be the same increase that phase 2 is getting, so phase 1 would have to $25.
That's what I'm saying. So that would bring it up to 528 plus.
Yes.
5.
And then yours would be up 88, 588, the $60 difference.
We have
That 60 could be 55, I don't know, but that's the gap that you're covering.
Right. So am I correct in understanding that year 1, phase 1 is 503? That includes pass-throughs.
Yes.
And then for years 2, 3, 4, and 5, add 25.
25, 25, 25, 25, that's right.
Plus a pass-through.
Plus the pass-throughs. See, it's a dramatic change. You're putting everybody equal, so you gotta make everybody equal. So.
So just to
It's-
summarize,
It's your call.
so you'd have phase one, year one would be 503.
503.
Year 2, 3, 4, and 5 would have a $25 increase.
Increase in the
plus
basic rent
an
plus the
adjustment for
pass-through.
pass-throughs up or down.
Yes, what will happen,
No, I'm just saying, so if anyone's listening, they can follow it. And then phase two, year one, would be the same 503, but they have an additional $60 lawn care pass-through. So that gets them to 563,
That's right.
correct? And then their park pass-throughs, so say the common pass-throughs to phase one and phase two, because we're treating them as one park, would go upwards or downwards the same amount each year.
That's right.
And the only difference for phase two would be if their lawn care pass-through
That's
went
right.
up or down.
That's right.
But they're both going to have a $25 a year base rent increase.
Increase.
Okay.
Right.
I know people are listening, so I just wanted to try to clarify it for them.
And so the 503 is $9 less than what we have agreed on. In year two, their rent would be 25 more, which is 528, which is $4 less for year two than what we agreed on. Year three, the rent for phase one would be 553, which is $1 more on what we agreed on. Year four, phase one would be 578, which is $6 more than what we agreed on. And year five would be 603 compared to the 592, which is $11 more than what we agreed on. Now, the overall difference between your suggested proposal, the adjustments, and what we agreed on would be $60 over 5 years for phase one residents.
I understand. I think your concept of now the park's complete and treating them the same, it makes sense. I think it in the future will be less confusing for residents on both sides, and the only difference between the two will be the lawn care. So I think it is something that we can easily address. One thing I did want to say is we will be looking at the lease, the existing 5-year lease and some of the terms, and making revisions to it with the help of the association. There are things that they'd like to see. There are things that the park would like to see. So I think we have common ground and common goals on that. So, hopefully in the next month or so, we'll have a revised lease that everyone will be presented with that will incorporate this rent structure as well as any little changes to the park and rules and things of that nature. So,
Mr. Bencourt, the board is okay with your suggested adjustments now?
Do you have any comments, Gordon?
No, I think we take care of this year at the 512 and the 563. And let this thing play itself out. I can see what you want to do 5 years down the road.
Do it all at once, Gordon.
What's going to happen? Huh?
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Everybody's gonna get a $25 increase.
Maybe that's too much.
Huh?
Maybe it's too much. Maybe it's not enough. How do you figure that in?
Well, the easiest thing to do is just affect one parcel rather than two parcels,
Yeah, I understand that.
okay? And what we have is, if I were to take this, it would be, there's no question that there is a discrepancy here.
Yeah.
In the dollars and cents. But they've agreed to pay 25. All right? And the suggestion was, let's get everybody on the same page. Now, would everybody want to pay 22 instead of 25?
Probably.
Okay, you see, you're looking for a number.
well, that's a result, and I can address this for you, is the 25 and the 20 was a result of negotiations going back and forth. ownership didn't start at 20 or 25. We started at a higher number. The homeowners association didn't start at 20 or 25. They started at a lower number. As Mr. Gillis referenced, we had a lot of meetings going back and forth, and I can't keep track of how many times that number changed, but that is what negotiations and compromise resulted in, was both parties being comfortable with that number. So I know that's the goal of what we've done. We've taken hopefully the hard work from you, where we're coming to you saying we've talked, we've addressed this, we've negotiated, we came back with this number of 25, which both sides are comfortable with. So we would hope that we present that to you today, and take Joe's recommendation as to the balancing, and we can get that in effect and have smooth sailing for 5 years. That's the goal.
Go get it in. Well, okay, quick summarization. We know what the first year for Phase 1 will be $503. I will break that down for you, Mr. Gay. It will be on page 2 of my minutes, which will show identical pass-through for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of 111, and then Phase 2 will be at $563 a month, and that will show a $60 landscaping. And that's the only difference between the calculations. Then going forward, we have agreed, the association and landlord have agreed to a flat $25 a month increase in the park. It doesn't say 1 and 2, it says in the total park, $25 per year for the next 4 years.
$25 up on us, $25 up on them.
Hello? Hello?
I think you just got some feedback. It was probably just some feedback from someone else.
Oh. So if that's the understanding that the board has said yes to, and management has said yes to, then we can get this squared away. You got your lease term document.
Yep.
Your rent schedule should be relatively easy. You would talk about pass-throughs, and if you want to reference the pass-through, you can say pass-through today as of 7/1/21 is $111 in Phase 1 and Phase 2. And Phase 2 has lawn care of $60. And then the rental is the mathematical difference. If you want to go through that, I can tell you what the mathematical difference is. $392 is the base rent. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go through that.
Yeah.
That will be
we'll word it out.
shown on page 2 of the minutes.
That works.
And you will get a copy once I do the minutes, and it won't happen till next week. And I will send you a copy. Who is the president of the homeowners association?
We don't have one, I'm the vice president.
You don't have one at the moment?
I'm the vice president.
All right, Mr. Gillis, when we finish, just give me your address,
Yes.
all right? Because my policy is, once I do the minutes, I send a copy to management, a copy to the board, president, and to the attorney, so that you will know that it's, the vote today makes it effective. The paperwork that follows, I can't get done before they close at noontime anyways. So,
We'll get the notice out to the residents on the park end.
pardon?
So we'll make sure to get that notice out to the
Yes.
residents on the park's end.
I appreciate that. And not as a derogatory, as you took it. I'm sorry if you took it that way. It's the same thing that I say to Peter. What's our capital improvement plan for the year? And he sits there and says, you asked me that last year. You asked me that the year before, and the year before. And he smiled. Okay? He smiled. Because he thinks,
We really can't tell.
Peter's just a happy guy.
I can tell his eyes tweaked a little bit when I got to him. I know how to get to him, that's why. All right, so I need a motion.
Can I have a clarification?
Beg your pardon?
Can I have a clarification?
Yes?
Just a confirmation. Phase 1, July 1 is 503, that includes all pass-throughs, correct?
That's the total rent, 503.
Total rent with pass-throughs. And phase 2, I'll call it July 1, 563. with
563.
total pass-throughs. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that includes the pass-through.
Correct, correct.
That's your total rent. We only vote the total rent. Here's the mathematics of it. All right, so I'm gonna be looking for a motion. We're gonna make it all at one, okay?
Make a motion, phase 1, 503, phase 2 is 563.
All right, a motion has been made by Mr. Francis.
Mr. Betancourt, if the motion could include the $25 increase in successive years?
I will.
Okay.
I'll include that. I will write that up in the minutes. You won't see it on the second
Correct.
page, but you will see it next year.
Correct.
Because I'll take this year's rent, move it over, add 25, and come in. So there'll be no question how the mathematics win.
That works.
Excuse me. Motion has been made to set the rent for 7/1/21 at Pine Hill Estates, Section 1 at $503 per month, and Section 2 at $563 per month. And that it's agreed upon by both parties that their base rent will increase by $25 per year over the next 4 years of the lease, and any change in the pass-throughs will affect the balance of the rent. Made by Mr. Francis. I will second the motion. Any further discussion? Being none. Anybody out there? Hello? The force be with you. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. It's a 2-0 vote. Mr. Stanley was absent. Now, I will ask for a motion to adjourn so these people can go home and have their lunch.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Francis, seconded by Mr. Betancourt. At 10:44, we are adjourned. If you have any questions, I'm still going to sit here for a minute.
I would say
Thank you
somebody
very
did a hell of a good job on this.